Hi, my name is Brandon. I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery, and today I'm starting to read The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer, and this book is about shifting perspectives on identity. So what we're going to talk about a lot in this book is what is personal identity, where does it come from, and I'm going to start to go through chapter by chapter, and as I go through, I'm going to identify some principles that stand out to me as the real takeaway lessons from reading this book. So looking at the first chapter, and real quick before I get into it, the reason this is not a book for alcoholics or addicts. This is a book for everybody. And the reason that this book came to my attention is that early in my recovery journey, a group that I was associated with, a lot of the alcoholics and addicts in that group really felt that this book spoke to them and helped them to better understand why their thinking and their brain worked the way that it did, and to let go of some of the same things that in Alcoholics Anonymous and other 12-step programs we're also trying to let go of. So I think that this is a book that can be helpful to anybody, even people who aren't suffering from addiction or alcoholism or other mental issues. But it speaks to those of us who are trying to learn to let go of some of our need for control over things we can't control in the first place. So getting into the first chapter, we're talking about in this chapter, we're talking about, it's titled The Voice Inside Your Head. So I'm just going to read a paragraph real quick. It says, in case you haven't noticed, you have a mental dialogue going on inside your head that never stops. It just keeps going and going. Have you ever wondered why it talks in there? How does it decide what to say and when to say it? How much of what it says turns out to be true? How much of what it says is even important? And if you're thinking right now, I don't know what you're talking about, I don't have a voice inside my head, that's the voice we're talking about. So first, observe the voice that's going on inside your head. And the next thing that they say about it, that he says about it, is if you're hearing it talk, it's obviously not you. You are the one who hears the voice. You are the one who notices it's talking. You do hear it when it talks, right? Make it say hello right now. Say it over and over a few times. So just do that. Make the voice in your head say hello. Now shout it inside. Can you hear yourself saying hello inside? Of course you can. There's a voice talking, and there is you who notices the voice talking. So this is the first principle of this text. This is the principle is you are not your thoughts. Okay, so the thoughts that are going on inside your head, that's not the you that we're going to learn to identify with in this book. So that's the first principle. Stick with me if this sounds a little weird. It's all going to start making sense as we go through the book. But you got to keep an open mind about the way you think about this stuff, because it is different than the way many of us traditionally think about ourselves and who we are and what makes us us. So going on to say, people go through so many changes in the name of trying to find themselves. They want to discover which of these voices, which of these aspects of their personality is who they really are. The answer is simple: none of them. The truth is, so now we're going to get into some things about control. The truth is that most of life will unfold in accordance with forces far outside your control, regardless of what your mind says about it. Billions of things are going on in this world. You can think about it all you want, but life is still going to keep on happening. If you spend your time hoping that it doesn't rain tomorrow, you're wasting your time. Your thoughts don't change the rain. You will someday come to see that there is no use for that incessant internal chatter in your brain, and there is no reason to constantly attempt to figure everything out. Eventually, you will see that the real cause of problems is not life itself. It's the commotion the mind makes about life that really causes problems. So that comes to the second principle. The problems in our lives are not caused by the world around us. They're caused by the way we think about the world around us. So our reaction to the world rather than what's actually happening is the problem. It's a big deal for those of us in alcoholism and addiction. I spent a lot of my time in my active addiction thinking about if only so and so would do things differently, or if only the world would change, or if only this would happen. And really thinking about how my life would be more comfortable if things beyond my control would change. And that's kind of a useless way to think, because I can't do anything about anything that's beyond my control. I can only do something about the way I react to the world. So the third principle is that our internal dialogue gives us a false sense of control of the world around us. So what he says about this is, you are very accustomed to settling into the playground of the mind and creating and manipulating thoughts. The inner world is an alternate environment that is under control. So when we are thinking about the world around us, we're thinking about the things that we're encountering in the world, and we're considering how we want to handle them. That gives us a sense of control. So he goes on to expand on it a little bit more down here. He says, you recreate the world within your mind because you can control your mind, whereas you can't control the world. If you can't get the world the way you like it, you internally verbalize it, judge it, complain about it, and then decide what to do about it. This makes you feel more empowered. When your body experiences cold, there may be nothing you can do to affect the temperature. But when your mind verbalizes, it's cold, you can say, we're almost home, just a few more minutes. Now you feel better. In the thought world, there's always something you can do to control your experience. So I've had that experience that, oh my gosh, I'm cold. Oh, hang in there, you're almost home. Like, what's the purpose of that internal dialogue? That doesn't change the cold. It doesn't change anything about what I'm doing. And so his argument is that basically you recreate the outside world inside yourself, and then you live in your mind. What if you decided not to do this? So what if we decided that we wanted to avoid that internal dialogue as a way of trying to control the world and actually just experience the world as it is? That's the fourth principle, is letting go of this need for control is the key to transformational personal growth. And indeed, we see the same thing in 12-step programs and other self-improvement and addiction and alcoholism programs. Letting go of this need for control that drives so much of the behavior that we have, and that keeps our perspective on life so isolated from everything around us, and that creates this illusion that we have some sort of control over our lives. So he goes on to say, the real reason we do this, we're trying to protect ourselves from the world around us. You will come to see that the mind talks all the time because you gave it a job to do. You use it as a protection mechanism, a form of defense. It makes you feel secure. As long as that's what you want, you will be forced to constantly use your mind to buffer yourself from life instead of living it. True personal growth is about transcending the part of you that is not okay and needs protection. This is done by constantly remembering that you are the one inside who notices the voice talking. That's the way out. The one inside who is aware you are always talking to yourself about yourself is always silent. And what he argues here is that entity, that being, is the real you. So this is the fifth principle. In order to experience this transformational personal growth, we have to become more familiar with and learn to identify with the true self. And the true self is the silent watcher who is observing all of these thoughts. So when you have these thoughts, when you are thinking about the world around you, when you're narrating the world around you, when you're in your head about all of these things, the person noticing all of that happening is the real you. And by becoming more familiar with that person and learning to identify with that person, we can start to experience growth toward just living life and accepting life as it is, rather than constantly narrating or judging it and trying to get it to fit our own personal agenda. So there's a lot more to discuss about this. It introduced some pretty significant ideas in this first chapter. We're going to get into a lot of this in a lot more detail in the other chapters. Again, this is The Untethered Soul by Michael A. Singer. I can tell you that I read this book early in my recovery. It was a really, really important book in my life. Rereading it, there's even things that I didn't catch the first time that I'm seeing now. So stick with it. There's really good stuff to be found here. In the meantime, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you back here with more tomorrow.